Greetings and welcome to No Man's Land, dear listeners. In this episode, we will talk about freedom as a concept and what it truly means. We will also talk about how we can be free and to what degree while we exist. It is a topic which is in part paradoxical, slightly mind-bending, but it gets increasingly interesting as we progress. Let's start with the main question. What is freedom? There are so many definitions of freedom, and it is subjective to each individual. It may be liberty in general for some. Others might say that respect, love, and peace constitute freedom. For some of us, being able to make a choice without any external influence in personal matters is freedom. And all these assumptions and opinions are correct. In fact, freedom can be anything depending on the circumstances one lives in. Therefore, the definition of freedom is quite flexible in nature. Alright, so freedom is an expansive concept. But how do we get freedom? How do we be free? While some believe that self-discipline and self-control is the way to leading a truly free life for an individual, in terms of a nation, freedom arises from the state of being independent, sovereign, and having a legal guarantee of life and liberty under the state control. People in world's democracies believe that being free is their right, which is true, but even in a democracy, freedom, though constitutionally guaranteed, is in many ways limited. Take, for example, the case of Himachal Pradesh, which is a state in India. By basic logic, any Indian citizen must be able to buy land in a state of their own country. However, that right in Himachal Pradesh is reserved for the natives of the state. Of course, this is to preserve their control over their historic land, and it is fair too. Reservations in government jobs is another example of curtailment of freedom of the unreserved category. But it is a part of the affirmative action taken by the government of India and the founding fathers of our country. Therefore, even the guarantee of freedom is limited in reality. In order to keep freedom equally distributed and balanced, we all have to give up some part of it to be able to ensure another person's freedom. Okay, let's shift a bit from the doctrinal definition and application of freedom and get into the abstract or more personal sense of the concept. Even though all of us face different circumstances that are unique to us, we all somehow share a very similar desire to be free. We want to break free of our economic conditions, societal norms and pressures, stigmas, and even expectations in some cases. This feeling endows us with the mammoth task of achieving freedom ASAP. The sense of being bound by the shackles of our circumstances pushes us to struggle to break out of it, and that generates a lingering emotion of anxiety with a fear of never being able to achieve what we set out to. The fear of never overcoming the challenges that come in the way of achieving freedom. This fear itself takes away our freedom to cherish the life we have in the moment. Another consequence of this is the feeling of needing to do more to be free. Therefore, leaving us with the belief that freedom is earned. So, is freedom something to be earned then? Well, not quite. When we take birth in this world, we come as free beings. But from the very first moment, and we don't even have to wait for the delivery, from the very moment of a child's conception, the society starts to pre-create its own set of expectations and associates their aspirations to the child that is yet to be born. This phenomenon starts at home and then keeps incorporating a person's entire social sphere, which, by the way, only expands as we grow. It is quite possible that some of you won't even be free to be present at your own child's delivery. then it throws us back to wondering that in this particular case, isn't freedom a choice? A man can choose to be present at his child's birth by simply ignoring or abandoning any other occupation that keeps him from doing so. But then, isn't being able to choose freedom itself? It is. So having the power to choose is freedom, and freedom is also a choice. But it has to be earned. But we are also born free. Well, isn't that confusing? But if you observe, the moment we start defining freedom or try to explain it, the more we get tangled. And more intriguingly, we ourselves restrict freedom to these definitions and explanations, thereby leading freedom itself not to be free. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the reason we all suffer from the feeling of never being free. Once we start looking at freedom in this manner is when we realize that we ourselves are at the root of our own misery and struggle for freedom. We are the ones holding ourselves back from achieving true freedom. Our whole life gets spent in the strife to just be free. We begin with trying to be independent individuals, then we want to be financially free, then we want emotional freedom, and at the very end, spiritual freedom. The list is much longer, but we take these 4 primary components or stages that are largely common to us all. True freedom is in not knowing freedom at all. Let me explain that. Ones who are truly free or feel free never actually know a separate concept of freedom at all. To help you understand better, consider if there was no death. No one ever died because of anything. We would never know anything remotely close to the seizure of existence of a being after a certain point in one's lifetime. Most obviously not, because that is something we would never have encountered. We would not even have a word called death. That is the case for certain islands that are home to ancient tribes that have chosen to not amalgamate with the modern world and were never colonized. They do not have a word for freedom in their language. It's because they've always felt free. So, now we know what constitutes freedom and how it is undefinable and can only be felt and not be granted. Going by this understanding, what do we do to be or feel free? To be able to realize our aspirations and potential to the fullest in this manner, we must understand that we will never achieve true freedom till we are alive or exist on the planet. I will tell you why that is the case in the concluding part of the episode. For now, please understand that we are all free souls with our own mind, consciousness, heart, and bodies. We are born free. Well, as free as can be. But if that is the case, then we must realize that the source of freedom lies within us. To start one's journey to be free, one must start asking the right questions. We need to stop looking at or listening to others to know how to be free. Close your eyes and look within. Ask yourself, am I free? Who am I? What do I want? And how do I become who I want to be? Trust me, introspection and contemplation will take you to unimaginable heights and distances and unlock your potential by freeing your mind of all that holds you back. And while you are on a journey to your life as a free being, remember that you must not grab that freedom by stepping on another's. Love freely, live freely. Imagine something we feel is so far from us is actually, literally free. Take a moment to feel and express gratitude for this life. Take a moment to appreciate everything around you. Be happy. Be at peace with yourself. In fact, even in a conjugal or a romantic relationship, You can only love one another if you both are truly free and don't feel bound by the other. That's why the whole point of accepting the other as he or she is remains vital. Because freedom is what lets you love yourself. And only when you love yourself will you ever be able to love another. Taking away one's freedom is the biggest punishment of all. It is indeed a punishment. And I'm not exaggerating. What do governments do when they want to punish criminal offenders? They put them in jail, essentially taking away their freedom. As technology grows to be more advanced, it is bringing all that's not actually close to us closer by making virtual platforms. This means that there are even more factors to influence one's mind. But technology has also given us the freedom to look for answers and share them with each other through various platforms that we can ourselves create and own, sitting at home and not be bound by media outfits to just get our thoughts out in the public. Even this podcast is an example. Technology can both get you freedom and take it away from you. It is up to you how to use it. Uncertainties, options, choices also take away freedom because there are only so many to choose from. What if you want to choose none of it, but something totally different? Well, listen to what your heart, your soul tells you. In fact, it is when your heart, mind, and your soul are able to agree on something. That is when you are not just free, but also happy and at peace. So with freedom comes happiness and peace. Earlier in the episode, I told you that existence itself means one can never be free. Let me explain that to you now. Existence itself is not free. Existence binds you to exist, live, and perform actions and forces you to feel emotions as you encounter different people and situations that are not even related to you or done by you. For example, if you hear about a barbaric murder of another human being, you will feel sad, enraged, maybe even feel hatred and hopelessness. But things unrelated to you most certainly influence the way you feel. Your surroundings will always have influence over you. Our Shastras teach us that all life forms on earth are in one way or the other bound by their desires. No one who exists is ever truly free. The concept of moksha or salvation as written in the Shrimad Bhagvad Geeta and the Shrimad Bhagavatam is when one's soul finally leaves the body and gets merged in the Supreme God. And we know that God is not a being made of matter. He is in the form of energy. Well, what is soul? It does not have a shape or form. It's just there. Some call it their conscience. Others call it spirit or soul. But what it truly is energy. It is said that God is in all of us. By this understanding, it is actually true. You are made of what God is made of. You contain a part of that ultimate energy as long as there is life in your body. All the energy contained in the universe or all the multiverses, if there are any, is the same. Therefore, you can only be truly and completely free if you don't exist in the form of matter. But we are not doomed. The Shrimad Bhagvad Geeta also tells us what it takes to be truly free as long as we are alive in the form of beings on the earth. It says that there are 5 enemies of a human that come in the way of freedom. And once these enemies are overcome, will we find true freedom. They are Krodh, Kam, Mad, Lobh and Moh, which means anger, lust, pride, greed, and attachment, respectively. I also like to add Irshya, Apeksha, and Bhay to the list, which means envy, expectation, and fear. But these are also factors that have their roots in the previous 5 enemies of a human. One who is free from all this is truly free, and only that being will be able to attain moksha. And it is then that we will truly be free. Or will we? Well, whether or not this is true, one thing is for sure. That is, knowledge sets you free. And that is what we do here at No Man's Land. Thank you all for listening to this episode on freedom. We got to you all we could from whatever we've been able to decipher, interpret, and understand from the sources of research and from introspection and deep analysis and thought. Be ready for our upcoming episodes as we plan to create more resourceful content in the future. Thank you for listening to this episode. See you in the next one. Jai Hind.